All right, my friend Sonali, what is your moment of impact?
I love this question. I'm greedy, Katie. I have many moments of impact. So let me start with a story, probably my earliest moment of impact. So I want you to imagine a classroom full of nursery students. I was probably about 4 or 5 years old. And this is a memory that I've come back to so many times. And it was only later in my life that I realized why it was so profound for me. So I was in Mrs. Logan's art class. I remember it so vividly. There's about 12 of us, two long rectangular tables, and we were given the choice to draw whatever it is that we wanted to draw. And I got all my coloring pencils lined up, all the shades of blue and green and yellow. And I had decided I am going to draw a peacock because a peacock was very familiar to me. It's in lots of Indian books, coloring books. And so, anyway, I started drawing this huge, gigantic peacock. And opposite me sat Jennifer. I won't say her surname on the podcast just in case. But she was a very ferocious, joyful, very messy little girl. And she grabbed the orange and purple pencils, and she probably thought what I was drawing looked like a good idea. And she started to draw a peacock as well. And obviously, she didn't know that a peacock is not pink and orange. And that moment, that memory is so fresh in my mind. And it left such an imprint on me because it taught me perspective, that you can see things differently and you can make things your own. So, yeah, that was my youngest, I would say, moment of impact.
That just shows what a natural guest you are to be on a podcast about impact because you really do create impact in so many ways. You offer such an interesting integrated perspective that comes from many different chapters of your life. And this example shows us that even as a person in nursery school, which I guess in the States would be like preschool, preschool,
Yeah.
you're in London, I'm in Chicago, that you were able to think about perspective from that, right? Like a lot of people, it wouldn't have registered at such a meta level. Like to you, you took it as a lesson in perspective and nonconformity, right? That we have the literal understanding of art and we have like a figurative understanding of art. And so it's really interesting that you knew that at a young age.
I think, to be honest, I wish I was that wise when I was 5. I think it was many, many years later that, sometimes when you look back with hindsight, you can see a red thread.
Yeah,
And we all have that memory, right? I'm sure you can think of one right now that you were just like, why do I remember this? There are
right.
so many important things to remember. Why am I remembering this? And it was only through exploring myself that I understood. Now I've got the words to express what it taught me, that you don't have to follow a blueprint. You can make something your own. There are multiple ways of doing something and seeing something. And Jennifer, she expressed it straight away, right? It was so intuitive to her. So I was in awe of her.
Yeah.
I almost have, yeah, my own orange and purple peacock, or whichever colors I wanted. She made me realize I can do whatever I want.
Now let's take a beat on art as a through line in your life. And everyone go to Sonali's website, which is literally quite beautiful. There's a sound element and there's art elements. And the art is there with questions posed by Sonali. And we'll feature the pictures and the link to this episode. But maybe Sonali, pick one. I don't know if it's the Onion people or Gulliver, but pick one and talk to us about, like, why did you choose this art and what do you hope it unlocks in people when they see it? And maybe on this theme of perspective.
Thank you for bringing that up. And which was your favorite one, Katie?
I really love the Onion people. I guess we've always heard that idea that we have layers to us. But I think it's really important, especially now where we're told our attention spans have been reduced to 4 seconds, that we're really just seeing the surface of people we talk to. Which one is your favorite?
I love your answer to that. And it's so, I was drawn to the Onion people too. So for this project, I got to collaborate with an art student. You should follow her. Her page is Burrito Fingers. She's fantastic. And one of the things we were talking about is our essence, right? And along with the layers of an onion, because we never know which layer we are going to explore when we meet someone. And we always hope to, peel back the layers of ourselves and of someone else. But, when you cut an onion, you only really get that like sting in your eyes or the smell of an onion when you cut it right to its essence, right? You cut it open.
There you go.
Yeah, I think that's what resonated with me. And actually, the onion metaphor is not mine, and it brings me to a second moment of impact. And that painting, that drawing, is really inspired by another moment of impact.
Let's hear about the other moment of impact.
So this was much later. I was probably in my late 20s, I would say, early 30s. I remember it so vividly. I had just finished quite an intensive communications campaign, doing the biggest campaign of my life for Drunk Pay, which went global, it went viral. I had great metrics for that campaign for my company. Worked really hard for it. London, like Chicago, like New York, like the West, really, we're really taught to perform, right? To get results, to be goal oriented. Performance and optimization is what you can do when you don't sleep, you ignore your health, you ignore your negative thoughts, you just get it done. And after this campaign, I was quite tired, and I decided to go on holiday to India for the first time alone, to the foothills of the Himalayas. And it was stunning. Favorite place on earth. And I went to a holistic health retreat. And like a true Westerner, I got there. I had explored their whole website. I had gone through all the activities that they offer, from Tibetan medicine to Ayurveda to mindful eating to walking barefoot, the amazing hikes by the Himalayas. So you go for this consultation with one of the doctors and practitioners. And, he was like, so what brings you here? And I said, well, I've never been to this part of India before. I wanted something that I can immerse myself in because I'm traveling for a long period of time by myself. So I want to really prepare for my trip. And, these are all the things I would like to do. So could you include this in my program? And he looked at me and he said, are you stressed? And I said, no. This is just how I am. I like to do lots of things. Like, I've only got 2.5 weeks here. I want to make the most of it. And he said to me, right, so your only program that you're going to follow here is you can have no routine.
The biggest
No routine.
challenge.
the biggest challenge, right? For someone who cares about doing and optimization and being organized. Wake up when you want to wake up. Eat the amount you want to eat. Go to sleep when you want to sleep. There's no tech in these retreats, but they have beautiful places for creativity. They have all the sports. And I was like, but I really want to go on a hike. Can I get signed up for the hike? And he's like, let's just take it a day at a time. And it was probably halfway into my retreat that I used to sit at the same space every day, and I literally used to read for 7 or 8 hours. And time used to go like this. They had no clocks. They had someone playing the flute, the ragas. So by what they were playing, you could kind of understand what time of the day it was. And I think my most vulnerable moment was I was listening to this beautiful piece of music. Actually, it's making me teary right now. I was listening to this beautiful piece of music, and I guess it brought tears to my eyes. And at that same moment, there was a practitioner walking by, and she said to me, "Your onion is peeling." And that's the essence, yeah. And yeah, it was a very special moment, because what I guess that practitioner was trying to teach me is that when you listen to yourself, when you listen to your body, I was unable to see that my body needed rest. I was so used to being extroverted, I didn't realize that actually at my core, maybe I'm an introvert. I stopped listening to myself in order to perform. So yeah, that was my moment of impact. Knowing that well-being matters more than performance.
Well-being matters more than performance. That's beautiful. And that is a really important adage for our times right now, to really return to well-being. I think it's so relatable because I think, myself, people, my friends, when they go like on a vacation, a retreat in a way as a form of a vacation, it's like, I'm going to do all the things. I'm going to see all the sights. I'm going to plan the itinerary, right? But we never create the vacation, which is the stillness. And I love how you went with the direction of your guide and you just embraced the stillness and threw away the routine. Did you notice things were coming up for you that you hadn't let emerge before? Do you remember?
Yeah, I think you know what it is, and I've thought about this a lot, so thank you for asking that question. And especially the point you made around space and stillness. It's almost like the essentials, you know? I think when we have a mode, right? There's almost like a polarity, or we think of it as a polarity, this state of like doing, which is like very active, it's very action oriented, it's very goal oriented, it's very curious. And then there's a part of us which is like the being, which is, like you said, more still, more spacious. For me, I would say probably more emotional, more artistic. And you think you have to pick between these two, right?
Yeah.
One is not better than the other. I think the work I realized I needed to do, which is also the work I do with my clients, not just for myself, is integrating them, right? How do I do or perform rooted in my being or rooted in my authenticity? How do I bring those things together rather than choose between them? Because they're two very different energies.
Yeah. So let's play with that because I think, would you say that the impact you care about is helping people connect to themselves and have this kind of well-being? Talk to us about what is the impact you care about, and then let's go to an example of where you helped a client do that.
Okay, it's exactly that. The impact is connecting to ourselves, having a relationship with ourselves, so that we can be our whole selves, tap into our full capacity. Because when we are rooted in who we are, we can also connect to others. You can't connect to someone really unless you are connected to yourself. And you can only meet someone. There's a famous quote by Ram Dass, and he says, "You can only meet someone as much as you've met them. You've met yourself. So the deeper you go within yourself, the deeper you will be able to connect with someone else." And that's what we're here to do, right? We
Right.
want to connect with each other. We are a community. It's not just about the self; it's others through the self.
Yeah. So let's talk about how you've taken these discoveries. In Mrs. Logan's classroom, it was about perspective and the importance of shifting perspectives and what that unlocks in insights for us. And then you talked about the trip to the foothill of the Himalayas, where you realized the constriction and constraint of routine didn't enable you to be well and here in the present moment. And so now you've brought that forth with your business is helping people realize emotional fitness. So talk to us a little bit about what is emotional fitness from your
Yeah,
conception of it.
that was a great summary, Katie. So I love how succinct you are. So emotional fitness has traits. Okay, for those that don't understand what emotional fitness is, it is essentially our human skills. It's the skills that maybe when you're at school or you're in the workplace, they were called soft skills,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Your ability to communicate effectively. So not just present your ideas and your views, but also your ability to deeply listen to what someone's saying. Your ability to be playful, right? To have some humor, to adapt, to feel alive. Your ability to be present, whether that's, some people call it mindfulness, but are you in the moment and are you able to be present in that moment? It is your ability of self-awareness. How we all think we're more self-aware than we really are. And it's a lifelong learning. But self-awareness for me also includes the ability to work with our nervous system, to understand our emotional capacity, to know when we are triggered by something, to be able to spot a pattern we have and consciously try to work with it so we can label our emotions, that we have a richer vocabulary for how we feel and how we express ourselves. Some of the other traits of emotional fitness is our ability to relate to one another through our capacity for empathy, right? Can you see someone else's point of view? Can you see their perspective? And can you see that there is more than one perspective? Just how there are many choices, can you appreciate that? And your curiosity in that perspective. Are you open? And I think when you have all of these, there's one for me or two that go hand in hand. Okay. And that is optimism or hope. I
Yeah.
know hope is an important topic for you. What is your outlook like?
Mm-hmm.
And I think optimism can be a learned skill. You don't have to be born optimistic. You can learn to be optimistic and hope. And the thing that is going to help you be optimistic or have hope is resilience.
Yeah.
And yeah, the nice ribbon that goes on top of this box of emotional fitness is authenticity, because authenticity is how you become resilient. It is the power behind resilience, because the more rooted you are in your authenticity or who you are, you will dare to hope for that dream, and you will have the resilience to work towards that dream.
You are bringing all the things. There's just really everything that makes us human and have the capacity to love and care and be empathetic and trust, right? And I love how you brought in that optimism can be a choice, right? Because what we learn in science is that humans are primed with a negativity bias, right? Like that we had to sort of look around for when is the tiger going to pounce, or when is the the river stream going to run out of water. And so now as humans, we can be a choice. We can choose to be optimistic. We can choose to be hopeful and helpful. Hopefully those two go together. Yeah.
That's a good thing.
So I love stories. I know you love stories. Tell us a story about someone that you worked with or someone that you know where you saw as they began to feel more authentic, they began to feel more resilience, right? You talked about the one sort of a precondition for the other.
So, Katie, you said something really important, which is we have a negativity bias, right? We are wired to look for threat. And we're also wired not to be in discomfort, right? There's a
Yeah.
reason. Yeah. We don't want to do hard things. Like,
No.
why would you, right? We don't like discomfort. And there is a narrative around, how much can you suffer? Because only after you suffer, like, I don't know, the weights at the gym, are you going to get the results? And the story I want to tell you is about someone I worked with, and she's in her mid to late 30s, and she was getting married. And one of the techniques or modalities we used, so she had come to me because she was feeling quite overwhelmed. She was getting married within a short time frame. She was having to make a lot of changes in her life, right? So any big change is going to, and any uncertainty is really going to overwhelm a lot of us, right? Where am I going to live? If I have to move country to be with my partner, what is the job I'm going to have to take on? I've got this wedding to put together in a really short space of time. How much are we going to spend? How are we going to have these money conversations? What am I willing to compromise on? What am I not willing to compromise on? And oh my gosh, like we're arguing, is this really the right decision to make?
Yeah. My blood
So
pressure's going up just hearing the list of questions.
exactly. You're basically like, fix me, right? People are like, fix me,
Right.
or fix my partner, fix him, because he's bringing all these problems. So let's just fix him. And so she had come with this situation, and actually, what we realized was the reason she was feeling overwhelmed was that she had lost sight of her values. She knows them. We all know our values. They're deeply embedded within us. You can't lose them. It's just that sometimes you have to remember them. And when you remember some of the things that are important to you, let's say it's your religion or your culture, and being able to celebrate that, you will then know that that's the lens any decision I make needs to travel through. Right? And it will help me make my decision. So she was disconnected with some of her core values. And that meant that any content she was seeing online, any inspiration from other weddings she was seeing, she was influenced by that, even though it didn't actually fit the values she had, the values her partner had, or even their values as a couple, right? There was no bodyguard or bouncer to their decision making, whereas your values can act as that bouncer. And the other thing that we realized about the negativity bias is that sometimes when we feel discomfort in our body, right, there will always be a place in the body that doesn't feel that discomfort. Like even right now, if you were to scan your body, like right now my back is hurting, for example. Yeah, my back is hurting, but my legs feel pretty good. What about you? Can you feel comfort and discomfort in your body?
Well, that's very mind-bending insight. I literally have never heard that before, but I tend to carry a lot of the weight or my perception of the weight of the world in my shoulders. And actually, like my eighth grade teacher, shout out to Ms. Richter, a world cultures, world history used to follow me around occasionally, just going like this to get me to like drop my shoulders, not in a creepy way, in a very aligned way. But yeah, so I've heard that saying, like the body knows the score. Tell us, like, how should we think about our emotions being healthy and unhealthy in our body at the same time in the same way?
So I think our natural instinct is to go away from discomfort, right?
Right.
Shut it away. Either shut it away and pretend it doesn't exist,
Yep.
or we indulge in self-care. And self-care can sometimes be a bypass, right? Like, how can I bypass feeling like this? Like, how can I make it go away, even if it's temporary?
Yeah.
And the work of Dr. Raja Salvam, for anyone who's listening, so he has invented a protocol. It's a 7-step protocol, and it is called Integral Somatic Psychology Protocol, and it's a game changer. So what this protocol is allowing you to do is to build the capacity for discomfort in your body. Okay, so right now, for example, Katie, you said your shoulders, you can feel some discomfort in your shoulders, right?
Yeah. Constriction.
Yeah, some constriction. And if we were to go deeper, which, we probably won't right now, you'd probably be able to play around with some emotions that sit there. Okay. And if I had asked you to spread with intention that discomfort, maybe it would spread down your arms. Maybe our body is a huge container, huge, but we like to keep the discomfort locked in a small space or in a familiar space. For you, it might be your shoulders. For me, it might be my chest. It might be somewhere that I know it's there, but I keep it locked in that room. But the problem is when we keep it locked in that area, it intensifies. It's a bit like when you get a paper cut. It's such a tiny cut, but damn, does it hurt, right? Like
Exactly.
you can feel the pinch.
Yeah.
Exactly. So if we expand that discomfort a little bit, it's like diluting it. It's like adding water to cordial. It expands, it dilutes, but we can still work with it, but it's not as intense.
I want everyone to know that you are a certified somatic practitioner, and you're also a member of ICF, the International Global Certification as a coach, and how you have this whole program of emotional fitness. So I love how you make things so accessible. Like I can just start thinking about, do I want to just confine all that discomfort in my shoulders? Or am I willing to like open the door a little bit and let it out? Because there's so much work about, emotions being repressed in the body. And if you're repressing them and you're not feeling them, you're not processing them, then you can never release them, right?
Yeah. So to be honest, every session I have will bring in the body. Because if we think of our intelligence, we have our like intellect, right? We have our mental intelligence that all of us are using all the time, right? And thanks to podcasts like these, thanks to books, we have access to so much information that we are able to uh, use our analytical, rational, creative abilities quite a lot. I would probably say we are overstimulated in our mind, right? We have no lack of information or reasoning capacity. We have our physical body that we use, right? People are going to the gym. A lot of emotions are also held in the body, like we discussed. And sweating, I'm not a doctor, but with all the, in terms of your nervous system, certain exercises, certain workouts can help with that. Your breathing, your hormone production, your vitamins, all the rest of it, right? Your diet, your lifestyle. But the body is also the container for our emotions. So we will always use the body to be able to access emotions and to be able to give them a place to work with. And then we have, if we go even more subtle, right? So we've got the mind, we've got the body, we've got the emotion. And then the more subtle we go, we have our spirit. You can call it spirit, you can call it your intuition, call it your soul, call it whatever you want, okay? But it's the most subtle part of ourselves. It's the wisdom within us, It's almost like remembering, it's like a re-remembering. It's not learning something new, it's accessing something that exists already within us. And every session, like even working with the bride, we had to work with the body because she was unable to put into words what she was feeling. Why was she upset about this thing? Why was this small thing so important to her? To give you a small example, sometimes we can become fixated on solving the wrong problem, right?
Right.
You could say, okay, it's really important that I have to look a certain way, right? My wedding needs to look a certain way. And when you dig deeper and deeper and deeper, you realize it's not the problem to fix is not making the wedding look a certain way. Actually, what that person is trying to access is if my wedding is perfect, if I look perfect, if everybody else around me looks perfect, I'm in control, right? So really the value that mattered to this client was feeling loved and feeling in control. And because she was feeling out of control, she was spiraling. And that's why she got decision-making fatigue, for example. We are always working at all levels because why would we only use the mind when we have such a broad capacity of intelligence? We have so many different levels of intelligence, and it's practicing maybe tapping into the ones we aren't using as much.
That is a very rich paradigm. And I think what makes you such a singular resource and so impactful is your ability to bring in mind, body, emotions, and spirit and have the holistic integration. You really offer a very, very impactful method. Talk to us about one of your philosophies. I know you have a philosophy that I've heard you say we should live life by design, not by default. Can we go there for a second? Can you talk to why do you love that philosophy and how does that resonate in your work with clients?
Yeah. Thank you for those kind words, Katie. I appreciate them. That was very kind of you.
So true.
So, no, it's very kind. So the phrase "to live a life by design, not by default" is actually from one of my favorite books that was gifted to me, called Essentialism by Greg McKeown. And I love this philosophy because essentially what he is saying is you need to know what the essentials are in life, right, to you. And the only way you are going to find what is essential to you is to start with choice. Okay.
Right.
So for me, start with perspective. See all the choices that are available to you. And in a coaching session, for example, we try on lots of perspectives, right? We
Right.
try on, we play to see, okay, if this How do we feel with this perspective?
Mm-hmm.
And then you will be able to see which one is aligned to your values, which one feels more congruent to you. And it's always a very few things, right? It's a very minimalist perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And once you understand what is important to you, whether it's, you can call it values, you can call it your essentials, you are then able to make a decision. But you have to know that every decision has a trade-off. You
Right.
don't get to have and I think that's the big part of the dialogue that is missing from every conversation, right? Whether it's like social media, whether it's people you're speaking to. Are you willing to accept the trade-off of that decision or of having that value?
Mm-hmm.
Are you able to see the trade-off? And I think that part, are you able to see the trade-off and how it's going to impact your life, is a missing piece in the puzzle. Because we all want it all, but we don't actually want to see, we might not want to do the hard work that gives a certain lifestyle. Or we might want to have a more balanced life, yet what we're dreaming of and what we're trying to manifest or, aspire to doesn't really work with that trade-off.
With you on that, another way of saying that is there's no free lunch, just to bring in a little economics from my field of study. But, what is so resonating with me from that beautiful explanation of why you're drawn to the wisdom of essentialism is people are using self-awareness. Your clients are being guided to use self-awareness as their filtering logic because you're reconnecting them to their authentic self. You're reconnecting them to the knowledge of their body. You're empowering them by bringing them home to themselves. So then they can make these trade-offs and make these decisions. What am I saying yes to, while being fully cognizant of what am I saying no to? And I love it so much because it's very similar to the dance I do with people around impact, which is why I wanted to do this podcast, because impact is a filtration, right? We're asking people, what is the impact that they care about? Why do they care about it? And then how are they bringing that forward in their lives, whether it's energetically or whether it's manifested in 3D reality? So I think the filtering logic of essentialism around how you bring it into emotional fitness in your curriculum and the filtering logic of impact are very simple. So what are some things people can do to feel more connected to their emotions, to their body?
That's a really powerful question. And maybe my answer will be quite surprising. So, so I actually think to go inwards, you need to be in community,
Yeah,
right? You can't do it alone at home with your therapist or a coach and your journal.
right.
You are going to understand yourself more when you witness yourself, when you are exposed in different situations, when you are in community with different things, whether it's at work, whether it's with your colleagues, it might be your neighbor. If you want to build your capacity for self-awareness, emotional capacity, you have to watch yourself, right? Not in a let me correct myself and analyze myself and criticize myself way, in a let me just see how I behave and what comes up in my body and be around people. And one of the I think one way you can really build your strength for resilience,
Yeah,
empathy, optimism, learning how to rely on people is actually in friendship, and especially intergenerational friendship. Because when you are friends with people of different ages, you might have someone elder to you, that, you know, a friend, and that person might be a mentor or a guide or give you some wisdom. They actually might be able to witness you if you are unable to witness yourself. And through that relationship, you will have a different kind of exchange. Maybe you're friends with someone younger to you who has a more challenging perspective. You know, perhaps they are more adaptable or flexible, and you might learn something there as well. I think there is a real gift that needs to be celebrated about the power of intergenerational friendship and what it can do for all of our self-awareness and for all of our emotional fitness.
I'm really glad that you brought that up, and I want to go two places. I want to respond to the intergenerational friendship. I just want to go back for 1 second, because you talked about how people discover things in community by being curious. And if we think about your 2 moments of impact, Jennifer was a stimulus for you to have the insight that you've carried forward in your life about shifting perspectives and chosen perspectives. And the director on the retreat telling you your only quest here is to have no quest, to let it unfold, right? So those are examples of you putting yourself intentionally in situations, witnessing yourself in situations, but getting the feedback from community and the situations to help anchor the awareness. And that's very much how I learn things too. I learn things by saying things and hearing what other people say and watching what other people do. Like, we are hardwired to be social creatures. And both of us would definitely say, you are getting benefit from the journaling and you are getting benefit from all the things. We just also want to encourage you to also think about how can you bring your curiosity into community as another vector of the self-understanding. And now I want to come to the intergenerational friendships, because I'm so glad that you mentioned that. I think, you know, you built the case very lovely for someone more advanced in chronological age than oneself. And I want to build the case the other way. So we're covering the bases. So I just had the most beautiful summer. And one of the reasons it was so magical is because I had 2 interns that, Avery and Petra, that are in their 20s. And, well, actually, Avery's younger. Very, you know, somewhere between 18 and 25, y'all. Anyway, I'm older than that. Spoiler. And so, I mean, it was so helpful for me to see how they approach everything. And it was just really fun. And I think a lot of times we put this artificial constriction on. We think we have to just make friends of people that are already kind of showing it up in our path. But if you kind of take that road not taken, you can really enrich your life with these intergenerational friendships, right? And I think that's why a lot of these traditions in the world are so meaningful, when the family stays together, the family lives together, like so many cultures, right? This is probably, you tell me, this is probably true in Indian culture, right? That we want to honor all the generations, and we actually want to stay physically near each other to have that kind of intergenerational relationships. Yeah.
It's also less pressure, isn't it? Like, for example, I'm sure the interns got as much value from you as you did them. You know, because again, it comes down to perspective. It's quite a lot of pressure for one person to figure everything out about themselves,
Right.
and then figure out how they're going to do whatever they want to do in the world and relate to other people, all just in their mind. Whereas when you have people that can witness you, you can witness them, you can share perspective, you can challenge perspective. You just learn quicker, like you said, and it's more fun. That's the key thing here as well. It's just more fun.
Yes.
Yeah, we need to move, I feel, very strongly. Like the last, I guess, important message is we are really becoming such an individual. We have a very individual mindset. And I think with the onset of AI, with technology, we can achieve so much just with a computer, right? With AI, with our own chat GPT. But actually, to build your emotional fitness, to build your sense of belonging, to relate to other human beings, you actually have to meet them you actually have to be in conversation. So yeah, I think that's important.
I'm really glad you brought that in because we do have to close soon. But like in this quest to be augmented humans, don't lose the human first connection, right?
Yeah.
We need, but we need both. Well, I would argue we definitely need the human connection. Let's just put it there. So everyone can follow you at Emotional Fitness with Sonali, right? Tell us how to follow you, and then I have a closing question. We're going to have links, but
yes, it's just my name, Sonali Makanji, or Emotional Fitness. I should come up. I'm on LinkedIn. I don't have a massive presence on Instagram, so LinkedIn me, I will definitely respond. So thank you, Katie.
yeah, and you work with clients in person, but also virtually, right? So you treat global clients, right? You work with
Yeah.
global clients. Okay, great.
Yeah.
And I would say definitely look at the art with the music turned on because it's quick. You can just go there and look at the art and it'll really change your perspective. And it's a fun thing to do. All right. So we
Yeah.
always close. Go ahead. What?
Yeah, I was going to say, and tell me about it. Tell me how you feel when you look at the art. Tell me how it speaks to you. I would be really interested in knowing.
Awesome. All right. So Sonali, what gives you hope?
Wow, no one's ever asked me that before. What gives me hope? Can I take a second?
Yes.
What gives me hope? I think, I feel, let me start with I feel. I feel what gives me hope is my resilience. Yeah, which, yeah, I think I dare to hope because I am willing to do the work it takes to get me further along in my soul journey, so to speak. And yeah, it's my faith, I think, that gives me hope.
Beautiful. I love how you brought in faith and how you chose the verb you dare to hope. That you recognize to manifest what you want with hope, you have to do the work and be in alignment. So that's really, really powerful and beautiful. Thank you so much, Sonali, for being on the pod. Virtual hugs. I love it. I can feel it.
Yeah, I'm putting down your shoulders, Katie.
I felt it on my shoulders. It's the grounding and the emotional connection that we have. So I think of you as such an impactful person. You've enriched my life. You've enriched the lives of many people I know. You're a fantastic friend. And you really, whether you're formally coaching somebody or just having coffee with them, you really hold the space to let people unfurl. And you're just a very trusted, cherished advisor. So I think you really brought the wisdom today, and people can really get a sense for what you're all about. And thank you so much for being with me.
Thank you. Can I acknowledge you?
Sure.
Can I end by acknowledging you because you've said so many kind words? I want to acknowledge you for the curiosity that you brought today and your way with words and how you can really understand the essence of a topic or essence of what I am saying, and be able to express it so beautifully. And, I am very thankful for our friendship. Even though I'm in London and you're in Chicago, today it feels like we are in the same room.